Hi guys, welcome back to Motion Filmy. Over 20 years ago, audiences joined Dom's crew for a wild ride.
Might lose your car.
Here's where each of the Fast and Furious films rank in the franchise. Let's get started.
What makes you so sure?
Cause I'll be there to kick your ass if you ain't.
Number 10. Too Fast, Too Furious. The first sequel in the Fast and Furious franchise was not great. Dominic Toretto was absent for the film's entire runtime, with Too Fast, Too Furious instead focusing on Brian O'Connor and the newly introduced Roman Pierce. The two went undercover when they were tasked with stopping a drug lord. Unfortunately, the story was not particularly engaging and failed to impress. Number 9. Fast and Furious. After Brian O'Connor and Dominic Toretto were separated for 2 films following the original, they were finally reunited in Fast and Furious. For the film that shared the name of the franchise, Fast and Furious was one of the more forgettable entries. It was never a franchise-defining film, but it did begin pushing the franchise into more action movie territory. Fast and Furious acted as a bridge between the earlier street racing-focused films and the later installments that focused more on the heists, but it stumbled and felt relatively dull and generic. Number 8. The Fate of the Furious. The Fate of the Furious turned Dom against his team and forced him to work for the cyber-terrorist known as Cypher. It was an unnecessary film that did not need to release so soon after the superior Furious 7. Aside from some solid action, there was not much else the movie had going for it. Jason Statham's character, Deckard Shaw, was moved from a villainous role to a more heroic one. While a redemptive story was welcome, here it was not done that well. For a franchise centered on family, Dom crew welcomed Shaw too quickly after Shaw had seemingly killed one of its longtime members. Number 7. Hobbs and Shaw. Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham teamed up for the first Fast and Furious spin-off film Hobbs and Shaw. Fans who liked the two actors and went into the film not expecting races generally had a good time. The two leading actors had surprising chemistry not only with each other, but with Idris Elba's superhuman villain and Hattie Shaw. Hobbs and Shaw might not have been groundbreaking or been for everyone, but it was a well-made, straightforward action flick starring 2 major movie stars. Number 6. Fast and Furious 9. F9 was like a movie sprung from a child's imagination who loved to play with toy cars. It was heavily criticized for its high level of disconnect with reality. F9 even seated Tej and Roman in a rocket car and launched them into space. Ultimately, one enjoyment of F9 depended on how silly they wanted Fast and Furious to be. But the movie was bloated and pushed things too far, surpassing limits even for the Fast and Furious franchise. Number 5. The Fast and the Furious. Released in 2001, The Fast and the Furious was where the franchise all began. Brian, Dom, Letty, and Mia were all introduced in this first film and were great characters from the very beginning. But The Fast and the Furious marked a point in the franchise where it needed time to truly hit its stride. The movie was very stylistically different from the other films in the franchise, being much more realistic and smaller in scale. Dom's crew were Los Angeles street racers who stole VCR TVs and DVD players, not super spies that went to space. Number 4. The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Tokyo Drift killed off fan favorite Han, forcing Fast and Furious, Fast 5, and Fast and Furious 6 to be set before the third film so that Han could appear in those movies. The Toretto crew were absent from Tokyo Drift except Han and Dom in a cameo role. The film distinguished itself from other installments by focusing on an aspiring racer in high school, but the character was not very likable. Number 3. Fast and Furious 6. Justin Lin directed a massively entertaining action film with Fast and Furious 6. It had fantastic car chases, explosions, great humor, a likable cast, and a strong villain in Owen Shaw. The action sequences were simultaneously ridiculous and awesome, including hand-to-hand combat in subway stations, a tank rolling through a highway, and Dom's crew chasing down a plane in the film's final act. By the 6th film in the franchise, most viewers recognized that the films required significant suspension of disbelief. The runway at the end of Fast and Furious 6 was probably the longest runway in cinematic history. Number 2. Furious 7. The highest-grossing Fast film was also one of the highest-rated films in the franchise. Furious 7 did not bring much new to the table, but it did everything the franchise was known for incredibly well. The action set pieces were impressive, supported by an excellent script that allowed the chemistry of its cast to shine through. With Furious 7, James Wan proved he was the perfect choice for the director's chair on the 7th installment. Furious 7 has been remembered for its emotional tribute to Paul Walker. Number 1. Fast 5. Fast 5 was first and foremost a heist action film, marking a significant departure from the franchise's racing roots. There was only one car race in the entire film. Dominic Toretto and Brian O'Connor called in their crew to steal hundreds of millions of dollars from a corrupt businessman and drug lord. On the crew tail was the newly introduced agent Luke Hobbs. The The heist led to cars dragging a vault through the city streets of Rio, smashing the cars of the pursuers that got in its way. Fast 5 gave itself permission to be dramatically over the top. Are you going to book tickets for Fast and Furious 10? Tell us in the comment section. Thank you for watching.